Science finds God. The achievements of modern science would seem to contradict religion and undermine faith. But now, for a growing number of scientists, the same discoveries offer support for spirituality and hints of the very nature of the Creator. And the more deeply scientists see into the secrets of the universe, some might expect, the more God would fade away from their hearts and minds. But that's not true. And that's not how it went for Alan Sandage. Slightly stooped and white-haired at 72, Sandage has spent a professional lifetime coaxing secrets out of the stars, peering through telescopes from Chile to California, in the hope of spying nothing less than the origins and destiny of the universe. As much as any other astronomer, Sandage actually figured it out. His observations of distant stars showed how fast the universe is expanding and just how old it is. 15 billion years or so. But through it all, Sandage, who says he was almost a practicing atheist as a boy, was nagged by mysteries whose answers were not to be found in the glittering panoply of supernovas. Among them, why is there something rather than nothing? Sandage began to despair of answering such questions through reason and logic alone, and so, at age 50, he willed himself to accept God, the living God, the Creator. It was my science that drove me to the conclusion that the world is much more complicated than can be explained by science alone, he said. It is only through the supernatural that I can understand the mystery of existence. And something surprising is happening between these two old war horses, science and religion. Historically, they have alternated between mutual support and bitter differences. Although religious doctrine midwifed the birth of the experimental method centuries ago, faith and reason soon parted ways. Galileo, Darwin, and others whose research challenged church dogma were branded heretics, and the polite way to reconcile science and theology was simply to agree that each would keep to its own realm. Science would ask and answer empirical questions like what and how. Religion would confront the spiritual, wondering why. But as science grew in authority and power, beginning with the Enlightenment, this model broke down entirely. Some of its greatest minds dismissed God as an unnecessary hypothesis, one they didn't need to explain how galaxies came to shine or how life grew so complex. You can't get something out of nothing. Since the birth of the universe could now be explained by the laws of physics, the late astronomer Carl Sagan concluded, but there was nothing for a creator to do. Oh, so how far away from the truth he was, and every thinking person was therefore forced to admit. Well, anyway, today the scientific community sometimes scorns faith. There is a reluctance to reveal yourself as a believer. And some clergy are no more tolerant of scientists. A fellow researcher and friend of Sandage's was told by a pastor, unless you accept and believe that the earth and universe are only 6,000 years old. Well, that's not true either. It is little wonder that people of faith sometimes resent science. By reducing the miracle of life to a series of biochemical reactions, by explaining creation as a hiccup in space-time, science could seem to undermine belief, render existence meaningless, and rob the world of spiritual wonder. But now, theology and science are entering into a new relationship. They go hand in hand together. Rather than undercutting faith and a sense of the spiritual, scientific discoveries are offering support for both of them, at least in the minds of people of faith. Big Bang cosmology, for instance, once read as leaving no room for a creator, has now changed, and now implies to some scientists that there is a design and purpose behind the universe. Again, that there is a design and purpose behind the universe. Evolution, say some scientists, theologians, provides clues to the very nature of God, and chaos theory, which describes such mundane processes as the patterns of weather and the dripping of faucets, is being interpreted as opening a door for God to act in the world. Although the very rationality of science often feels like an enemy of the spiritual, here too a new reading can sustain rather than snuff out belief. Ever since Isaac Newton, science has blared a clear message. The world follows rules that are fundamentally mathematical, yes, by the numbers. Rules that humans can figure out, numbers that humans can figure out. Humans invent abstract mathematics, basically making it up out of their imaginations, yet math somehow magically turns out to describe the real world. Greek mathematicians divided the circumference of a circle by its diameter, for example, and got the number pi, or pi, 3.14159. Pi turns up in equations that describe subatomic particles, which in turn are made of numbers. Everything is made of numbers, light and other quantities, but have no obvious connections to circles. This points to a very deep fact about the nature of the universe, namely that our minds, which invent mathematics, conform to the reality of the cosmos. And yes, God made the numbers too. We are somehow tuned into its truth. Since pure thought can penetrate the universe's mysteries, this seems to be telling us that something about human consciousness is harmonious with the mind of God, the Creator. To most worshippers, a sense of the divine as an unseen presence behind the visible world is all well and good. But what they really yearn for is a God who acts in the world, and yes, He does. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Some scientists see an opening for this sort of God at the level of quantum or subatomic events. In this spooky dimension, the behavior of particles is unpredictable. And perhaps the most famous example, a radioactive element might have a half-life of, say, 1 hour. Half-life means that half of the atoms in a sample will decay in that time, half will not. Quantum mechanics allows us to think of a special divine action. Again, a special divine action. God can act without violating the laws of physics. Yes, God is real. And God did create the universe, the unseen as well as the seen. And once again, all these things are connected to something even bigger. Something big is going on around the world nowadays. And once again, all these are more signs of the end times transition days.